All right. Hello, everyone. Today's presentation is Security at Home. I'm going to present for OCS's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. My name is Danton Thompson. I am the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard Program Administrator for the Washington State Department of Health. That is a mouthful. I am also the writer of the biweekly article Security at Health for the Department of Health. I've always been into IT, but I wasn't always, a cyber security superstar. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a rock star, if you can believe that. If you look behind me, you'll see all these guitars and such. Makes me think about the last time I was on Facebook. I remember I saw this post. It was like, "What's your rock star name?" And it's basically, the name of your first pet plus the street you grew up on. And I was thinking, that's how you get your rock star name? That must be why my old band never worked out. Our band was called Control Alt Rock, and it was with my old boss, Tracy Aldridge. You might know him over at Watech, but it never worked. But I digress. We just had the wrong name. But if I think about this, our band name should have been Don Juan Robert Shaw. And I think I could have pulled that off, Don Juan Robert Shaw. But these questions look pretty familiar, don't you think? The name of your first pet plus the street you grew up on, that equals your rock star name. Where have you seen questions like these before? Well, I've seen questions like these on these fun little security questions that some websites and accounts use to recover lost login credentials. I've circled here, you'll see what is the name of your first pet. Here, this is from Google. And what is the name of the street you grew up on from another website? There are other fun questions like these. What's the first thing you learned to cook? What's the first film you saw in a theater? What's the first time you flew on a plane? These are fun little, whose questions are these you'll see on Facebook. But, 9 times out of 10, it's just a cousin or auntie forwarding some information out that's fun for you. But that one time, it could be something different. That one time, it could, in fact, be social engineering. Social engineering is the art of manipulating, influencing, or deceiving you in order to gain control over your computer system. Also in control over any information that you have that someone else might want to get. A threat actor could use the phone, email, postal mail, or direct contact to gain illegal access to information that you may have. You must never forget that you are the most valuable asset on the planet. Information is key these days. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. It said, "There is no knowledge that is not power." And what that means is basically if you know something and someone else doesn't, then that's power. You have something that someone else wants. And these days, threat actors will use any means necessary to try and get that information. Common forms of social engineering includes passcode fraud, quid pro quo, and CEO fraud. But we're going to talk about 3 of the biggest types today. Now, like I said before, 9 times out of 10, this is just a Facebook friend forwarding something fun. But there's always that one chance that it's something more nefarious out there. Let's take a look at this Facebook post. I said before that this made me think of the last time I was on Facebook. So this was the royal wedding. So I haven't been on Facebook in quite a while. But let's take a look at this post. What is your royal guest name? Your title, Lord or Lady. First name, your favorite ice cream topping. Surname, favorite flower of your high school's first name. Let's take a look at some of the comments. Lady Caramel Rose Airline. This person is Lady. Favorite ice cream topping is caramel. Favorite flower, rose. Went to high school, airline. Now, there's plenty of comments here, and there's one cheeky comment here by possibly a security professional. Lord, security question of stolen identity. But, off the bat, these comments look, not suspicious at all. They look fairly common. But what have we learned from this Facebook post just from one single comment? We've learned whether you identify as a male or female generally. We learned the answer to 2 commonly asked security questions. favorite flower, favorite ice cream topping, and we learn where you went to high school. With that, we know what is possibly your hometown and possibly your zip code, which is another question that could be asked at a security topic. And that's all from a 4 a 4-word Facebook post. So that's something to look out for out there. There's not always, the threat actor doesn't always look like the typical robber. It could be yourself. That's one thing that we work on at DOH is protecting the users from themselves. This form of social engineering is called baiting. It allows you to present the information on your own. It only gives you little, tidbits of information. It wants you to provide more information out there. The next form of social engineering we're going to talk about is called baiting. And it's when fraudsters want access to your sensitive data. They may try to bait you and helping you get it. Here are 2 other forms of this form of social engineering. These are from Twitter. It's Lord or Lady, your grandparents' name, your first pet's name, and your street name. This is more akin to the rock star version that I saw on Facebook. The next form of social engineering we're going to talk about is pretexting. In this type of attack, fraudsters impersonate someone of authority, like a bank representative, police officer, or an IRS agent. When someone is in a false sense of authority, people can be put in a false sense of action. They can be tricked into doing something they wouldn't normally do. If you receive an email or a letter in the actual mail that says, hey, your property will be seized unless you do such and such, immediately someone is going to think, hey, I'm going to have punitive damages or something bad is going to happen. I should do this. But what you're not going to think is look over this entire letter. Are there mistakes in there? Is this letter printed oddly? Where did this come from? There's usually always mistakes you can find in something like this. And that's never been more prevalent in the last form of social engineering we're going to talk about today, and that's phishing. Phishing is the most popular of all social engineering attacks. Phishing messages try to confuse you so that you'll release sensitive information. For example, they might tell you there's an immediate need to change your password, or that your security policy might need updating so you can enter in these credentials on this page that looks just enough like your company site to where you wouldn't pay attention. But when you enter that login information, it goes straight to the threat actors and they can use it however they want. Let's do a bit of a scenario here. Let's take a closer look at each of the 7 areas in an email and the red flags associated with each of them. We like to call these the 7 red flags commonly associated with phishing emails, but I like to call them what to inspect when you're not expecting. So this is our sample email. From App Store at googleplay.com to support at googleplay.com, CC you at yourorganization.com, Jen at a different organization.net, Julia at nonprofit.org, Nick at university.edu. Date, Tuesday, December 4th, 3 a.m. Subject, your attention is needed. Body, thank you for your purchase. Your account has been billed $19.99. This charge will be reflected on next month's statement. Your receipt is attached. To review this purchase, click below. Here's a hyperlink and here's an attached PDF. Now, let's take a look at this email section by section. First off, we're going to take a look at the from section. This is from App Store at googleplay.com. But if we take a closer look, there are 2 P's in Google Play here. Also, I don't think Google uses the Google Play branding anymore. I believe it is just Play Store. So that's another red flag. Let's look at the to section. It's to support at googleplay.com. I don't work for Google Play, so it shouldn't be going to me, but this is how it got to me. If you check the CC, the CC to me at myorganization.com, Jen at a different organization.net, Julia at nonprofit.org, and Nick at a university.edu. When you see that you're copied on an email and it's sent to a bunch of other people, that's a red flag to be suspicious of this email. You were copied on an email that you don't know the other people it was sent to. These people are not at your organization. These are people you don't know. Another red flag is that Jen and Julie are fairly close in alphabet. So this could have gone to an alphabetical list. So that's another red flag to look out for. Date, Tuesday, December 4th at 3 a.m. This email was sent wildly outside of business hours. That is a red flag. If you receive an email at 3 a.m., you don't know when it was sent. It could have been sent at 3 a.m., but that's the date. That's a red flag. Subject, your attention is needed. There's that false sense of urgency that we talked about before. Boom, your attention is needed. Something is wrong. Look at this right now. They want you to look here so you don't see what's going on over here. The subject line of the email is irrelevant or doesn't match the content. That's not the case here. An email about something you never requested or a receipt for something you purchased. This goes with the body. This is thanks you for your purchase. Your account has been billed $19.99. Immediately, this is saying that you owe them, you have been billed some money. This is something that you are losing. So obviously it's going to put you at a heightened sense of urgency. You're going to possibly behave erratically or illogically. Down here, there's a hyperlink in this email, also with 2 P's for Google Play. If you hover over a hyperlink, you can often see where it is actually going to. There's many ways to disguise where the URL of a hyperlink is actually going to. There's a misspelling in this URL. This tells you to hover over that URL to see what's going on. If you see a hyperlink in an email that you were not expecting, never, ever, under any circumstances, click that hyperlink. That's a huge red flag. And the final red flag in this email is this attachment. Never, ever click an attachment in an email that you were not expecting. That's the easiest way to get a virus or malware on your computer, your workstation, your personal computer. Just don't do it. If you weren't expecting it, don't download it. So that's a lot of security talk about different types of spots in a phishing email. But let's put this in a bit of a perspective. So imagine someone shows up at your house unannounced, and it's someone you don't know, and it's someone asking to speak to someone who does not live there, or you, or anyone else in the house, possibly. Also, it's 3 a.m. And they state that it's very urgent that you listen to them and do what they ask. And if you don't eat this piece of candy in the next 5 minutes, something bad's going to happen. And they hand you an opened, unwrapped, sketchy looking piece of candy, and you eat it. How likely is that to happen? Not very likely, right? Well, that's what happens when you click it on that hyperlink. That's what happens when you download that attachment from that email you weren't expecting. So that's just a little perspective. Social engineering is one of the biggest issues that plague us at home in our work from home environment. We can have the tip-top security installed on our workstations, but if we're not secure enough in knowing the tactics that threat actors use, we can be completely open to phishing attacks and other social engineering techniques. The other issue that plagues people at home has to do with password complexity and password retention. Oftentimes people think, I'm doing everything right with my passwords. I have a great complex password. I've used it for years. No one's ever guessed it. There's an issue there. The next 2 topics we're going to cover are complexity and retention. I'm going to tell a story. When I first started using websites, I think it was hotmail.com. I remember the first time I created a password, it was Danton90 at hotmail.com, I think. And my password was ABC123. And I thought I was so smart because I used characters and numbers, and it was so secure. Little did I know, I find out that's the worst password ever. But this is little 10, 11-year-old me. I had no idea. A regular person, an everyday Joe, would usually use a word from the dictionary as a password. Hopefully not, but that's something that happens. The simplest password would be something from a dictionary. That kind of password would be guessed instantly using something called a brute force attack or a dictionary attack. Threat actors have evolved to know how to use things like this fairly easily. Uh, Brute force attacks use lists with common words from the dictionary or other commonly used passwords. Also, those words spelling backwards. So if you use the password, or if you think you're super smart and use password spelled backwards, like I did, it's still going to be guessed instantly. So the next line of complexity we can do to make our password more complex, we're going to start off with chocolate, this simple word from the dictionary. Our first line would be to change one character. That character is this C. We're going to capitalize the C in chocolate. Just by taking chocolate from a lowercase c to a capitalized C, it would take a computer 19 hours to guess this password. A brute force attack is usually all in lowercase letters because people can't be bothered to hold the shift key. That's not going to be much in the long run against a threat actor, but that shows the first step in complexity. The next thing we would do is substitute a few characters for numbers, or just add numbers in particular. That would change our chocolate password from 19 hours to 3 days it would take a computer to crack. Let's see, we replaced our O's with zeros and our last E with a 3. That's still easily remembered, and it's still chocolate. Remember, it's chocolate. The next step in complexity would be to add special characters. Here, we've changed the A to an @ sign. It still looks like chocolate. It's still easy to remember, but it would take that computer 3 weeks to now guess that password. One of the things I like to do when just throwing on complexity at the end of a nice password is to add an exclamation point. It's like, hey, this is my password and it's more complex. Another one that I only recently found out about is adding a single space at the end of your password. It would take your complexity from 5 years to 400,000 years. That's crazy. And that's a space that no one would even see. If someone would see your password, they would still not get it correct. But it would take that computer 400,000 years to guess your password. And that's only a single password. Another thing that we like to use in the information security business is a passphrase. A passphrase can be used in place of a password, but it's much, much more secure because it's multiple different passwords put together. There's those spaces in there, and it would take a computer 100,000 years just to guess this common phrase, Happy New Year. Now, there's no special characters other than spaces. It's completely lowercase, but 100,000 years of complexity. Now, let's see if we add all the layers of complexity that we talked about before to this simple passphrase, and we get 3 quadrillion years of password complexity with just Happy New Year. That's fantastic. So if you have that old dusty password you've been using for years, just take it and spruce it up with these few easy tips. The next thing with passwords we want to talk about is password retention. And that's when good passwords go bad. The biggest story that comes to mind when I think about this is the Ring doorbell hack that led to a little girl in Mississippi being terrorized over her camera. This family thought that their system had been hacked by HackerMan, but what actually happened is the family reused their login credentials for their doorbell camera on another site that had been involved in a hack. When you reuse your passwords, you're increasing the likelihood that that password has already been included in a breach before. There are wonderful sites out there that you can go and securely type your password in or securely type your email address in, and it will let you know if it can find those characters in a known data breach. Another famous instance of something like this happened was a few years ago when Disney Plus first launched. Disney Plus launched, and everyone created their Disney Plus accounts and wanted to log in and watch some great Disney movies, but their accounts were immediately hacked by Disney threat actors. But that's not true. Uh, Account holders reused login credentials, username and passwords to create their Disney Plus accounts. And these username and passwords are already included on previous data breaches. Therefore, threat actors just had to wait for Disney Plus to launch, people to create their accounts, and instantly they could sell those accounts on the dark web because they already had the username and password. So reusing those great passwords aren't going to do you any good. Make sure you use unique passwords for every logon you have. Uh, you guys have any questions about any of the topics we went over today? And if not, thank you very much.